I realized that I was more concerned about what other people thought of me. And these people, I didn't even know them. My kids are not afraid to talk to people. They're not afraid to look at people in the eye. Unschooling is basically that it is constant check-ins with everyone. Like if you break it down, the word is just life without school, but it doesn't mean life without structure.
Michigan, what part?
Near Detroit, so about 30 minutes north of Clawson, near Birmingham and Royal Oak. Are you familiar with the area?
I went to, I've been through all of Michigan back in the day when I used to travel with the bands,
Okay.
but I don't remember the specific town names. I know I loved Ann Arbor.
Yes, yes, I went to school at U of M for sure.
How far is that from you? Because I found that to be one of the nicest cities I ever visited.
It is actually. I'm about 45 minutes from Ann Arbor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
No.
it's a little far though. When I commuted from where I live right now to Ann Arbor, oh, that was a trip. I mean, yeah, that was something. But I listened to audiobooks the whole time.
Oh, wow, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So how's your day been so far?
Oh, it's been really good. Just 2 days in between trips. And yesterday I had a birthday yesterday, so that was really fun. But it
Was it
was
your
really,
birthday?
yeah, yeah, I had a
Wow, wow,
birthday.
wow.
I know.
So you actually have lived to survive that birthday. What did you do?
So first we went to breakfast. My son and I, my oldest and I went to breakfast with my parents, which was really nice. And then we came home and what did we do? We just gonna hang out, did some cake and candles. And then we went to Hobby Lobby. It's like a craft store.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we got a few things there for my art station that I have so many. I decided to start handwriting letters to people. So I'm like, and I have all the supplies. It's not that I don't have them, but they were just kind of hidden. So I was having a hard time getting everything out all the time. So I wanted to have something handy. And so we bought that, and my youngest son bought a rocket. And then we came home and they put the rocket together, but it was too late to go and do the thing. And, but it was just quiet. So just normal stuff.
Did you get to eat cake?
Yes, I actually, both my kids, they each chose a cake. So we had two. And then my mom baked a Mexican dish that I really like. Like it's been one of my favorites the whole time. So she made one of those for me. So there's a lot of sweets around here today.
Oh wow. So your mom probably made for you what you really love, and the kids chose what they really love.
Yeah, well, they chose my little one. They both chose something blue, which is actually one of my favorite colors.
Uh-huh.
And my little one of my favorite animals, as you can see behind me, is the whale. So my little one chose one that had it looked like a whale, but it was actually like a mermaid tails, which I also love. So they were, yeah, I was so surprised. They were both really in tune as to what I like. So yeah, they were pretty cool.
Well, oh, that sounds fantastic. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you. And you are in Hawaii, right?
Yes, I am.
What part of Hawaii?
Honolulu, which is on the island of Oahu, where the lion's share of the population of all of the islands is here on this island.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not the largest geographically speaking, size-wise, but it is population.
Okay, that sounds awesome. How long have you
Yeah.
been there?
Since, God, since the Earth was cooling, uh,
I love I
1993.
That's so funny. Oh man, I actually never been to Hawaii. We fly out of here, out of Detroit into Honolulu,
Yeah.
but I don't do international trips anymore. I find trips that are shorter, the shorter the better.
Wow. So you're not much of an airplane person.
Well, I have been in aviation for 20 years though, and I love that. But I've already done the Asias, like the long flights, 14 and a half hour flights, the 10-hour flights. I just want to be it's just short. It's harder on the body. I've been doing it since I was 23. So exactly 20 years. Like this May was my 20-year anniversary of being a flight attendant.
Wow. Now you use aviation and flight attendant kind of interchangeably, or are they 2 separate kind of things?
I use them interchangeably though, because The industry itself, so you could consider pilots and flight attendants, which is like two careers above wing, they call them. And I use that interchangeably because we're the only people that travel more than anyone else. Like the ramp agents don't travel, the gate agents don't travel. They still are within the industry, but it's a little different when you actually have to physically be inside the metal tube for endless hours.
Right, right.
Yeah, so yeah, 20 years of that, and it's been a journey. It's been good and it's been crazy, and it's never a dull day in that. Never.
What was your route primarily when you were traveling or doing that work?
So it's been really kind of changing. So for a while, so I speak Spanish and Portuguese. And then for a while, I only did Mexico City here in Detroit. I was based in here in Detroit. And then when I was based in Atlanta, I did like South America. So I did Peru, I did Costa Rica, and then eventually I would do every now and then I would do some Europes like Spain and stuff like that. But I was kind of junior back then, so they would go really, really senior, like Argentina. It's really senior. Chile is really senior. I only did Chile once. And then from 2013 to 2017, all I did was Sao Paulo, Brazil, from Detroit to Sao Paulo. And I would fly there every Thursday and I would come home every Sunday. I did that for almost like the 4 years. That's all I did.
Wow. How long is the flight?
It's 10 and a half hours from Detroit.
You know, you're very fortunate to be able to travel north south
Yes.
versus an east west thing because my understanding is that the science shows that when it comes to jet lag, you don't get jet lag when you fly north south versus an east west flight. Is that true for you?
It's a little different. Yes, you're absolutely right. Like when you go from here, from Detroit to Asia, it's a little, it's so different. The jet lag is so different and it really doesn't hit you all at once. So before I started flying Sao Paulo, I was all about the Asia flights. So, uh, Tokyo, like Haneda and Narita, the two airports, and then Shanghai, Beijing, and Seoul in Korea. And that's all I wanted to do. But boy, they would really like I would come home and I would feel like so much energy. I remember one time I went running after I came back from a flight and I'm like, what is wrong with you? But then I got home and I sat on the couch and I literally just crashed. Like I just
Yeah.
fell asleep right there. And you're right. The jet lag does hit you differently.
I had heard once upon a time that for every hour of time change, like when you go east west flights, for every hour of time change at your destination from your home, that it takes 24 hours for every hour of time change to recover once you're back.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I feel like I have lived this jet lag life for the last 20 years because my body has never recovered. Like nor my body, I don't think it remembers what it feels like to be without being on an airplane. So that's why I just nowadays that so after finished Brazil in 2017, which is when the route stopped out of Detroit, I was like, "Okay, I think this is it. Like, no more international." I did a few internationals, but, like, we have, like, Rome and Amsterdam and Paris are, like, staples here in Detroit, but the flights are actually they're kind of rough, like and by the time you get there, your layover is not even 24 hours. So I'm like,
Mm.
I don't know. And then I have to come home and be a decent human being to my children and my spouse. And it doesn't always happen if I do that. So I have learned to seek the routes, which is like shorter flights, longer layovers, like nothing less than 15 hours, all of that. And my body, I started to listen finally. My body's like, girl, you can't do this. And I'm like, okay, well, let's find out what works right now. So,
Right, right. You mentioned a couple of minutes ago that you speak both Spanish and Portuguese. Have
yeah.
you visited both Spain and Portugal?
So I have visited Spain, but I have not visited Portugal. And honestly, I feel so when I study Portuguese from Brazil, and they are very they come from the same family, but they're still very different.
Mm,
So I feel like if I went to Portugal now, years I have after I've, learned Portuguese and I haven't spoken Portuguese in a while, the people would start saying something. I'd be like, man, I don't understand what you're saying. So let's just stick to Portuñol, which is the mixture between Spanish and Portuguese. That's kinda like when a Spanish person doesn't know how to speak Portuguese, we default into Portuñol. So we just say the Spanish word, like Spanglish, say the Spanish
right.
word with a Portuguese accent. That's it.
Oh, well, that's so fascinating to me. When you said that you spoke Portuguese, I was thinking of my times in Portugal. I've been there several times. I find the people to be some of the warmest, loveliest folks I've ever met.
Mhm, mhm.
I know that's a blanket statement, but I really, really enjoyed myself.
No, they really are. And that's because when I chose Portuguese, so I was having a hard time in Detroit, because I was really junior, I was having really crappy trips, so I needed to choose the language. And my options were French, Italian, or Portuguese. Italian was completely out of the running because it was a seasonal flight, so I wasn't going to fly that whole year, just in the summer. And then French and Portuguese were year-round trips. But what decided me into Portuguese is that I knew that the people from Brazil and people from Portugal, because they would often go there, would help me get better. So if I made a mistake whenever I spoke to someone, I always told them, please correct me if you hear something, because I want to keep getting better. Whereas I knew the French people would, but I wouldn't feel as confident to ask, like, can you please correct me if I'm doing it right or saying it wrong? Because they would just, it's not the same. So Portuguese, Brazilian people, they're some of the nicest people that too I have ever met, for sure.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's kind of cool. So
Yeah.
I apologize, Julieta. We haven't even spoken about what your specialty is and what attracted me to you when I read about you. You do something or practice something called unschooling.
Yes.
And unschooling is an educational philosophy. Well, unschooling sounds like, I think, to most people, maybe who've never heard it, very similar to homeschooling. And that is a way to get the kids out of any sort of a overly structured educational system and to be able to then teach them by way of mommy and daddy or some sort of an adult who has half a brain at home. There's a part of it that I totally love, which is most of it, but there's a part of that homeschooling, perhaps unschooling, that I'm not sure if I do jive with, and that has to do with, you know, the state of the way people are these days with electronics, and people aren't that bright and they're lazy and they might not want to drive the kids to school. Who knows what motivates them to get them into like an unschooling or homeschooling program? So give us a little bit of an overview of what it is, and then allow me to play devil's advocate throughout the conversation so we can learn more about this.
I love that. Yes. So you're absolutely right. So unschooling is an educational philosophy. And it really, when you think about school system and homeschooling, it's like that's your starting point. There are many ways to do homeschooling. So a lot of people, and myself included, I started with school at home. That this was back in 2020. The state of Michigan was going back and forth. Yes, mask, no mask. Yes, this, no that. I was like, I mean, I have my own issues right now. I cannot be bothered with what the learning curve that you are going through, which it was valid, but I'm like, I don't have to do that. So we said, let's just try it for a year. So I did school at home, which it was like the books, the curriculum, all of that. And then I realized that it was not what my children needed. So we went back and forth, and then I found play. So I wanted to include more nature. In the state of Michigan, that was the only thing that you could do was be outside. So you could go to parks and be okay. So I'm like, okay, so this is something. And then I found my way into unschooling, which now I define it's a life of partnership with your children. I am the adult, so I do the adult things. I register them, I ask questions, and then I just follow their lead. into what they're into. So sometimes we just flew a rocket this morning that we bought yesterday at Hobby Lobby. So that was kind of like what we did. But obviously, we needed the adult things. So unschooling is basically that it is constant check ins with everyone. And most people, because it is basically like if you break it down, the word is just life without school, but it doesn't mean life without structure. And I think that's where a lot of people, even myself, so when you're homeschooling, I have generally speaking, the parent has all the power and we tell the kids what to do. And then the kids either do it or else, right? And then unschooling, it says, well, you follow your kid's lead. So then we release that decision making onto our children. And then all of a sudden we are parents, and like I said, myself included, I was part of this. I didn't know what to do because if my children wanted to go, I was just like struggling to make sure that I met all of this. And then finally I was like, I am burned out. Like I cannot be running, myself through this. So we now come in the middle. And that's where the growth has been for us. So we're in the middle. I don't know. Did that
Okay.
make any sense?
It
Please
makes a
ask
little bit of
questions.
sense. It definitely,
Okay.
I'm torn when I think about homeschooling
Yeah.
and now unschooling, learning about that and where it comes from. It basically sounds like it allows the children to follow their own interests, which drives the educator, mommy and daddy,
Yes.
to then kind of shape their curriculum, even
Yes.
though it's not as structured as school, where when, we grew up, it was pretty much everyone had to learn the same thing at the same time, at the same speed, and come up with the same answers. And you find all these years later that a lot of that stuff in structured education really makes no difference in life.
That
You
is
hardly use
exactly
any
right.
of that.
Yes.
So there's a big divide between, what we learned in our day and what unschooling is proposing to be able to do. Doesn't a lot of the responsibility come down to the parent? But
It, yeah.
it does, right? But you don't have that background as an educator, as a teacher, and it could be kind of too loose, maybe. Like, oh, let's go to Hobby Lobby, and the kids, get to run around and play, or let's go to Toys R Us or whatever it might be. So, how do you really make sure your kids are learning instead of just running off willy nilly?
I have struggled with that, at the beginning. Like I really struggled because even though I went to the University of Michigan and I graduated from there because I wanted to leave my job as a flight attendant. And I thought that I couldn't get anything else if I did not have a degree. Now, mind you, I graduated back in 2019, so I went to school in my 30s. And some of the things, when you said the same answers, I remember writing papers in some of my more senior classes. And I'm like, what's the point of writing this paper when I know the professor already has the answer that she wants me to get to? So everyone, even in those papers, they wanted us to all get to that same answer, which had been part of a research. I'm like, what's the point of this? So I always struggle with that. But nowadays, it is not that I'm doing all the work because I don't know everything for sure. I mean, I'll tell you, I do not know everything. So I make sure that I find the people that do. So the curriculum right now, it is just what is interesting for them. And then it is just like one piece and then another piece gets added with another class gets going and stuff like that. It just kind of gets built up. Will they know everything? No, but neither does the people that are in school right now because we all have gaps in the learning and not because we want to but just maybe it's just not what we need in that moment.
Okay, that definitely sounds fair. How do you take a look at simple things like, let's say, math and numbers? It might not be that important because, how many of us are really going into careers that are going to be very math intensive? But at the very least, you need to learn how to balance a checkbook, or you needed to back in my day. But the small things about numbers or history and things along those lines, how do you teach the kids? Because you want a well rounded human at the end of their education, right?
Yeah, so I think everybody wants to be well-rounded, no matter where you are in the world. And the way I do that, so there's a book that I read, was written actually by a mathematician, and it's called The The Lament of a Mathematician. I think that's what it's called. And what it is basically he's saying that math is an art. And he argues for how irrelevant the way we teach math in schools, your sums, your subtraction, your multiplication, your division, then your geometry or algebra, how irrelevant that is. So I don't necessarily look at those measures anymore, but I do put that in everyday life. And the way that I do is because we do business, so we have some rental properties, and I am a crazy person about a budget, and I am a crazy person about numbers because since we started this journey, I had to look at the way I do my work differently. So my husband stays home, so I'm very intentional about the way we spend our money, and the kids are involved in that. So whenever we go somewhere, I'm like, this is the bill. Can you tell me, can you pay this? Can you help me do this? They're involving everything. So there's not necessarily a test at the end of each lesson per se, but there's always the real life experience about paying for something, about knowing the value of something and how that impacts our family.
That's very interesting. For me, as far as numbers is concerned, I learned more in my years after traditional school when I was
Yeah.
going to culinary art school in London. And I became a baker, a pastry chef to begin
Oh
with.
my
And you have to be
goodness.
very exact. And so numbers are really important in that field, right?
Exactly. I mean, if you put a little bit more yeast than you're supposed to, your pastry's not going to come out the way it's supposed to.
That's for sure.
So,
So that's a great way to learn numbers, right?
yeah, so we do the baking, we do pizza at home all the time. We do, the money when we travel. So we travel when you mentioned history. So history for us is through traveling. Is traveling, it's everything when it comes to seeing how other people live and how something that happened in the past affected that area. So some of our questions that our deeper questions actually happen when we travel. So at the airport, when we road trip a lot, but they're not, it's hard to put that to measure that. Like it's hard to measure that. I probably wouldn't know how to measure that, because I don't, I keep track. I have a lot of journals. Like I have a lot of journals about that. Um, but that has worked from out of my conditioning. Like I have to let go of my need to prove to other people that what we're doing is right, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And it's a lot.
Here's something that I've always thought of, and I've repeated it 1,000 times that my personal belief, and perhaps some scientists and researchers along the way, say that the most well adjusted, smart, and successful kids slash people are the ones who have the best social skills, not necessarily the best education. Is there anything that you can kind of take from that and apply it towards the unschooling aspect?
Yeah, it's so interesting though because most people. So one of the first questions that I usually get when I tell people, so I usually say people we homeschool. I don't necessarily go into unschooling all the way unless they're familiar with the philosophy, because then there's a lot of like, it's like I can't describe 5 years of journeys and learnings and all of that stuff into just like 20 minutes. So I just kind of save myself the trouble. But one of the first things is the socialization. And the way I explain it is like, so think about me, for example, like I'm at the airport with a lot of people, a lot. And I spend the time in an airplane with a lot of people, similar to kids in school. But the reason, but not because I'm around a people, it means that I am forming deep relationships with all of them. And if you remember in our time, what they would say, you came to school to learn, no to socialize, right? We would not be allowed to pass the notes. Well, in my day, back when I grew up in Mexico, that was the notes. And you would get called on for passing the note, trying to share something with your friend. So the way I do now, I see socialization, I see it when they are not afraid to talk to an adult, like when they're not afraid to engage in conversation and to look people in the eye. And that's a big one because people tell us all the time that, like, oh my gosh, like they're not afraid to talk to people. I'm like, no, my kids are not afraid to talk to people. They're not afraid to look at people in the eye and to just ask the questions because questions are just how we learn, you know? So we open the space for that. And our deepest relationships now come from doing the things that we love. So I don't know. It's just like it has evolved, honestly, like it really has evolved. But the relationship and the ability to speak to another human being and not being afraid, it's something that they have. And I'm like, okay, we just go with that. But they talk to people all the time at the airport, when we travel, when we go to the stores and all kinds of people.
That's so interesting to me because you spoke about doing the things that the kids want to do, allowing them to kind of forge ahead and suggest things that they want to learn or they want to do.
Yeah.
Now, it just seems to me, and I think that people might naturally go to, if you allow a kid to do what they want to do, they're going to want to eat candy and eat spaghetti and meatballs and have pizza and go play, not necessarily sit down and structure their mind and their body to be able to focus. So how do you get over, you know, the aspect of kids aren't necessarily built to want to learn and to build the intelligence. They just want to do what they want to do, which is very core humanity. So how
Yeah.
do you get them into the mindset of like, okay, we're going to learn. But then again, the other part of this is that you're mommy and they're not, they're not in a environment where there are a lot of strangers they can mix with and get to understand or other adults that they can get to look in the eye. So how did they learn those skills?
Yeah, I think for us, it really has evolved. We did try to do the curriculum the curriculum, the school at home system, but it didn't really work well because both my kids are very hands-on. So I needed to cater to that. So we have been doing that in different ways.
Allowing kids to do what they want, which is
Oh,
like
yeah,
eating
yeah, yeah.
candy and watching cartoons.
Yeah, so that's a perfect example, the Candace situation. So my belief through experimentation, which is something that we have done in the last 5 years, was that when I set up a limit that has nothing, it's so arbitrary for them because I know that eating candy isn't the best thing you can do, right? Like, obviously, nobody wants to do that. However, if I tell my son that I'm like, you're not supposed to eat all this candy, but he still doesn't really know his limit. So his body, one of the things that we work really well, because that's something that I had to do was to navigate the regulation of my nervous system, right? Because, oh my God, I was like such a hyper stressed out person, like half my life for no reason, honestly. Like, but so I had to work with that. And what we did one time, I think it might have been a year before we started out this whole process, but he wanted to eat all the Halloween candy. And I'm like, fine, just know that you're going to get sick. And he's like, oh, it's okay. I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, he was like 4 or 5 at this point, right? There really wasn't really a lot, but he felt the true feeling of being sick. And I feel like I have come to understand that his process itself has been through trial and error. And that is huge. And that's something that we don't always give space for as parents because we know better. All right. I know better that that's not okay. But so he did the candy thing. He did get sick. He felt terrible for like 2 days. And I wasn't, I told you so. Like, no, I didn't, I said, I didn't say I told you so, but I'm like, hey, can you feel difference in your body to know that that was too much? And he was like, yeah. So since then, he realizes that when he eats a burger, he just eats like 3/4 of it because he knows, he said, once I eat that last piece, I feel full to the point where I feel like I'm going to throw up. I'm like, okay, but that is him making decisions from his own understanding of his own body. Because for me, I could probably eat a burger and a half and not feel sick until that, half of that second burger. But so it's been really interesting to see them build that relationship with their body. And then I think it goes well too with the whole video game situation and the electronics. Oh, that was a hard one for me. That was really, really hard because I didn't grow up with electronics. Did you? Did you grow up playing video games?
Oh, no. Mm-mm.
No, like me neither. I was like, we were poor. So, my parents didn't have the money to buy them. So I didn't grow up with them. So it wasn't something that I was used to. And the way I look at it, I look at devices nowadays is that devices are available. They're a tool. They're a tool and not a connection, not a replacement for a connection between us. And that's, again, that took like 3 years. Like, please, if you're watching this interview, know that I did not get here. Like, I was not here. I was a parent that I took the iPad from my kids. I hit the iPad. I would say, this is the worst evil ever. I just was just not a nice human being because I was so afraid of it. So the electronics are just a tool. And just the same way we have our phones, we have our iPads, we do have your work computer, it's just a tool.
Yeah, but
And
that's that's a rational, smart person's response to the electronics system that's screwing up the world. And everyone's got this thing attached to the end of their arm that they're always on, you know, looking at, watching things, being unmonitored. The peer pressure that's involved with electronics
yeah,
is
it's
ridiculous
huge.
also. So, you're making rational, smart decisions. You're an adult. But how do kids ever get to that if they've got these devices, at the end of their arm all the time, constantly?
Yeah, so my kids do not have phones. My oldest is 11, my younger one is 6. They do not have phones. They do have iPads and they do have gaming consoles. And the
Are they
way that,
lobbying for phones, or are they
no,
satisfied with what they have?
no, they're satisfied with what they have. They don't really ask for them. Their friends, my oldest son friends do have phones, but honestly, I'm like, we don't really need it. Like we're together all the time, right? If it's not me, it's my husband. So the way we function is that the electronics are available to them 24/7, the same way books are. And this is where my biggest discovery came. So I was leaving my parents' house with my oldest son, and he was playing a game that it's called Zelda, and he was on the Nintendo Game Boy thingy. So he gets in the car, and then I'm like, "No gaming in the car." And he looked at me, and his face was like so sad. He was like, "But why?" And I'm like, "Well." By then, I knew that my condition was playing a huge part into my decision making because I wanted to please society, right? I wanted to be the good homeschool mom, the one that has the structure and the kids are learning. You could tell the kids are learning it. There's no chaos and whatever. And I was like, okay, hold on a second. So I said, hold on a second. And he looked at me again like, oh my gosh, like, you're too crazy for me because I am like, my emotional waves are like up and down like nobody's business. So I said, just hold on. So then I started driving. And as I started driving, I realized that if my son had had a book in his hand, I would have been at complete peace for that, for him to be able to read in the car. Now I'm a reader. I love my books. And then I realized further that I was concerned about other people next to me, right, in other cars because they would see me and then like, oh, there she goes, the mom that lets her son play video games in the car. Like, you're a terrible parent. And then I was like, okay, so here I am breaking this bond with my child because he was excited to make it to the next level because that game is all about skill. It's all about searching. It's all about making sure combinations and recipes to build potions and whatever. I don't understand it. But I realized that I was more concerned about what other people thought of me. And these people, I didn't even know them, right? I was like, okay. So once I got over why I was afraid that my kids were playing or the electronics, and I was like, okay, this isn't how I want to, you know, live life. Because one day my kids will be asked, so you were homeschool, like unschool, what was that like? And then my kids could say, well, it was great. Had the ability to, follow my passions and learn and, learn at my own pace. Or they would say, it was absolutely horrible. I would never do that with my children, and my children would go to school because their experience was so horrible. So at that point, I just kind of started diving deeper into the conditioning, yeah, so that's a lot. Do you have any questions?
Yes.
I feel like, yeah, once I get going, I'm like, you're pulling out stories and stuff that kind of happened. Like they were deep. They were a huge part of my learning curve as a person, as a parent, so they get really, really deep.
So I'm pretty much for unschooling or homeschooling. And I could also definitely see how advocates say that unschooling fosters independence.
Yeah.
And I could definitely see that critics are basically saying they worry that it can lack structure. So I keep coming back to like being with mommy or daddy who may not really want
Yes.
to be doing this, and that maybe there's a little bit of lazy going on, and like it's more of like this kind of like willy-nilly kind of education. I'm thinking about structure. I'm thinking about discipline. I'm thinking about plugging in. And, not everybody is plugged in as you are. So I'm afraid that a lot of parents who want to do homeschooling just don't want to deal with the school district, and they don't want to deal with all the BS that's involved in modern day education. But then are their kids really going to be benefiting by choosing their own path at home with mom and dad? My mom used to say, Matthew, go out and play when
Yes.
I came home from school. Dinner's at 5:30. Be back by then. Bye.
Yes.
And it's completely different now. Moms and dads don't let their kids walk away from their house or ride their bike or leave. I mean, it's just like it's so screwed up now, the family unit. And I'm just wondering if that's a valid concern. Is that something that you've thought about? Are you seeing that your kids are plugged in? Do you know any other kids who are doing this? Give me a little bit of the outside of your family aspect of unschooling.
Yeah, so that's a great point and so valid because what I discovered in our journey is that I knew that I needed to change because I was getting angry. Like at the very beginning, when you think back to the beginning, I was angry that my kid was not doing what I wanted to do. So I knew that I had to look at myself. So what I see now is that so outside of us, yes, we do have an unskilling group that I got really, really lucky to get connected with. And some areas, geographical areas, are much better. For example, on the west side, like Portland, California, out in the West Coast, you'll find a lot more unschooling philosophy. And there's variations, right? Everyone's values are different. I value my time and my connection with my children. So that really is a foundation. And some other areas like Florida and Florida's a big one. So what Florida did is that their tax money that would go to the school system is now attached to the child. So what I see that it's happening, and I really hope it happens because there are amazing people doing extraordinary work, is building like agile learning centers. Are you familiar with them? Have you heard
I'm
about
not.
them?
Tell us about that.
So an agile learning center, it's basically a building that has your structure, the same structure as school as far as time, in the morning you can go and drop off, but they are programs that are facilitated by different people and they are on a self-directed education on schooling philosophy. So when you walk in, most people have like a morning circle and they share, what they want to do. The kids get to choose the flow of their day and then adults facilitate whatever they want to, within their means, right? They may have a project like building a robot or Legos or something. So they help the kids do whatever they want to do and they communicate with the family because that's the other C. So income is a big part of it because homeschooling usually is done with one parent at home. So most families now, you need two incomes to survive in this economy. Like you have to sometimes. So this middle phase that it's now happening and they're growing, they are I think that's like the middle point for like the more well-rounded structure experience with other people that you're like bringing up. And I see, so we have visited a school, an agile learning center, a non-schooling center in New Mexico. And it's funny because Kristen, the founder, she was actually a public school teacher. And in the pandemic, she was hired by a company to teach their employees' children. So she was hired to, during the pandemic, everyone had to work, but the kids weren't at school. So she kind of, met that need for them. And then she founded her own space. And they have clubs, like acting clubs, science clubs, all of it, but they're all based on the child's interests. So if someone doesn't want to participate, it's okay. So what would you like to do? Here are other options. And then my friend Katie Proviance, she's in Spokane, Washington, and her setup, oh, it's so cool. We just went there too. It's in the woods. It's in the outdoor and the huge, I think it's like 10 acres that a church owns. And she has a shed in the back with like art supplies, books, and all of it. But it's just sticks and water and dirt and tree. And the kids all day, they get to do that and they build ramps and they play with the tires and there's physics and math. All of the subjects are there, but they're all mixed together. They're
Mm.
not separated or compartmentalized the way we know them in school, like your science classes at 9 a.m. and then your, I don't know, language arts classes like after that. So it's not separated, it's all together.
That's
Um,
interesting.
yeah, it's super cool though. I think that's a space that I would like to see more people building towards. And I think that's what Florida was doing a little bit because now their money, like I was saying, goes with the kid. So if the family chooses to do like a little co-op or a micro school, they call them a micro school, then their money would go to that. Because one of the biggest hurdles is sustainability for the people that found the spaces.
How how are monies delegated for homeschooling or unschooling, or are they by the feds
They're
and local
not.
government? They're not.
Yeah, they're not though. I mean, like I said, Florida, I want to say maybe Iowa has that too. There's a couple of other states that are like they have laws in place for they're starting to, but what most of the people in the homeschool community, what most of the people fear is the oversight. That if you take money from the government, then you're going to be forced into having a test. And that also goes with the homeschool regulations for even though we unschool, like that's the way we live our life. No structure, no specific curriculum. I still meet the requirements of having to teach language arts, science, history, Michigan history and all that stuff. It's just in a different way.
So I'm thinking, well, first of all, I can see that there could be a lot of skepticism and
Yes.
criticism within your circle, maybe your family. How do you deal with that, first of all?
I actually am very lucky. My parents, who are from Mexico, they sometimes I feel like they just kind of let me be, and they don't ask a lot of questions. My mom one time asked, "Are the kids going to go to school one day?" I'm like, "If they want to, they will for sure," because that's never been off the table for us. So while a lot of people that homeschool and even some unschoolers, they're like, "Absolutely not." For me and for our family, it's more about what they need in that moment. So I do check in. So I'm like, if you want to go to school, that's okay. Let's just find a place that it's going to suit everyone. And then let's find out what requirements do they need so we can set you up for success. Because
Hmm.
being in an environment like that, in a structured environment, it is helpful for some people. I know it was for me. Like I love being in a classroom setting. Like, I love learning from a person that is passionate about what they do. It is the most immerse experience that one person could have. And I absolutely love that. But it may not be for everyone.
So how
So,
do you replicate that passionate professor or teacher who you had when you were a child in school as the teacher of your children? How do you do that for them if that's not something you're comfortable with or
yeah, no,
educated by?
it's not necessarily that I'm not comfortable with it. It's just, it really hasn't happened. Like, for example, my kids do martial arts and parkour. So we are very fortunate that we have a martial arts instructor who has been doing martial arts since he was like 10 years old. He's a 9th degree black belt. So that passion gets transmitted through there. Similar to the parkour experience is someone that has been doing it for a long time, and then we go to one of our co-ops is on Friday. It's by a person. It's run by a person that has been in the natural world forever. And she is absolutely fascinating and amazing at showing my kids whatever they're interested in that moment, whatever comes up, and allowing for time of exploration. But it was hard to find the groups. And I think that's what's hard for some families at the beginning. It's a little hard sometimes to find your people, to find those spaces to grow so you can grow with.
How do
Um,
you how do you deal with it when child number one goes, "Hey mom, I want to learn French." What do you do if that's outside of your grasp, outside of your
yes,
reach?
completely. I could never teach French. I
How do you
barely
deal
s-
with that?
so what I do, which he studied Chinese when he was 10 months old. So this is how crazy I was. But, so what I do, I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." I'm like, "Where are we on the scale from 1 to 10? Like, how immediate is this need? Like, do you need it, like, right now?" Like, and he'll say, like, 5 or 6. I'm like, "Okay, so I have a little bit of time, so let me look for a teacher. Are you doing online or in person?" And he'll say, "In person," because online we tried online without school at some point, and he was not really having it. Like, he didn't really like that. So I'm like, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to look for it. I have to ask people where I can find someone that would teach you French. And then I'm going to come back to you to find out, if to tell you my search results. And then we'll go from there. He's like,
Mm.
okay. And that's kind of how we've been doing it. He loves horses. So he's been riding. He was riding for about a year and a half. And then something fell through with the farm. And that's something that he likes, but we have not been able to find the right person yet. So it's
Right.
something that kind of we come in and out of it. And then we just keep looking. Um, yeah, so it's just kind of like I have a notebook and I do check in. So I do journal every week as to what happened, what we went through as far as like experiences and what could potential add to that. Like they're both, my oldest is a World War II person. Like he likes that part of history. So we went to London and then we went to France for a little bit and just kind of like explore the area, talk more about it. And the museums are a big piece because I love them. So I take them everywhere. Yeah. So it's just one thing at a time. I know it sounds like it's very hands on. I'll say that.
I can see that.
It's very, very hands on. You have to be tuned in and you have to be connected with your children. And you also have to know what part of that journey is exciting for you. Because that's where I
Right.
see most of the burnout is for parents because we do everything for our children and then but we forget ourselves in the mix. And when you are with your children 24/7, it's not a good idea to forget yourself.
Is that part of the issue though? That it is just too much and that the kids shouldn't be with their parents 24/7. They should be out there in the world with peers and kids their own age and potential friends and things like that.
I would say that it's like maybe 60%. So here's what I see as the issue is. So as a parent, we go through life, you're a person and you're doing the thing. And the narrative is that you're supposed to go to school, graduate, have a job, and then get married and have kids, right? But within this narrative, there's no room to find yourself because you're acting on someone else's expectations of you, right? The school, your family, whatever. And then look at like Elizabeth Gilbert from Eat, Pray, Love. Like her book was such a success because she broke that narrative that she had and she went on to find herself. She went on to India, she went on to Italy, and she did that. When you have kids and you have not found yourself, homeschooling, or even your children, really, whether they go to school or not, will come and tell you that you need to get your shit together because and they will bring out stuff that happened to you like years ago. So I had to do a lot of that. Honestly, if you would have told me that I had to face my demons and face my past because in order to be a functional human being with my children, I'd been like, no, thank you. You keep them. Like, I do not want to do this. I do not want to face that part of some parts of my life that I put away for a reason, right? So I really think that if, and when people get started, it's all about the curriculum. But the way I do my work now is like you have to go inwards and backwards. Like you have to regulate yourself as a person before you attempt homeschooling because it'll break you. Like it'll bring the house down, it'll bring down the house of cards for you. If you're
Is it
not,
just because it's just too
it
much
is.
togetherness?
Yeah. Yeah, like, it's not only the too much togetherness, but you're meeting like, you're responsible for this person, for your kids. They're there and you're everything to them. So the requests, the daily requests, the daily, questions and needs of having to drive them everywhere. Even when you're in the school system, doesn't matter if you homeschool or not, but you have to drive people everywhere. You have no time to like find out what's going on and all of that. If you are not fulfilled, like per se, like if you're not a happy person with who you are and doing what you want to do, that's going to get on your nerves. And we've
Right.
been told as a mom in the past that, the more burnout I am, the better mom I am. It's just not true. Like, no, absolutely not.
So, how do you continue to invest into yourself, Julieta, with as a parent and as a human? And also, I mean, how do you create any separation for yourself, for your own growth that's
Yeah.
aside from your children? I know the kids are the most important thing in the world, but how do you identify the times you need for you that don't have anything to do with the
To
kids?
do with them? Yeah, absolutely. That took a while. So, and this will be different for everyone, but for me, specifically for me, it is to wake up at 4:35 in the morning and have about 3 hours of uninterrupted time. Like I absolutely cannot go without. When I'm home and even when I'm on the road too, is I have to get up at least 2 hours before I'm supposed to start getting ready to be able to have 2 cups of coffee, to write in my journal, and to see what's going on in my creative life. If I do not have that, which there has been times that I haven't, I am an absolute monster of human being. And
Right.
I have experienced that many times where I neglect that time and I just get irritated. Like I literally just get irritated. And please know that I am the farthest person from being perfect parent. But I can tell you that once I found that, how that affected me. So there was a lot of reflection from the beginning of our journey until now to find out why is it that I was like getting triggered like that. I've also invested in like different types of therapy, different types of work with people that were further along in the journey that I was. And that's why I started the podcast because that was a way through people's stories that were like, their kids are now in college and some of them are graduated and some of them are out there living their best life, being independent. I needed to know, can this be possible? Are there other people that have done it and been successful at it? Because I didn't want to screw up my children. That's what I wanted. That's not what I'm trying to do here. So I started the podcast by, to connect with people. And then I was like, okay, but throughout those interviews and stories, the common theme was the acknowledgement of us as parents to work on our own stuff before trying to guide someone else, really.
I would think that nowadays, with all the technology that's available to you to help be an educator for your kids, that if your child asks about something you're not up to snuff with, you can always look for a DIY YouTube video and sit them down and you guys can watch and learn together. Is that something you do?
I love doing that. That is one of our, I love doing that. And we have done that with the fish tank. My 6-year-old has wanted a fish tank for like a long time. And I am not, I had fish before, but they die. And I'm not a green thumb person. My husband is the one that's so very good at it. So we just watch videos together and we ask questions together. And it really, you learn alongside your children. Like, I'm no better or worse than they are. We're just on the same journey and we're learning together. But you're right. There are so many, there's a homeschool website. I think it's called homeschoolmule.com. And you basically put in what kind of lesson or what kind of question you are looking for. So my oldest was asking about animation, learning how to animate. I'm like, okay, well, let me try this website. And I just put, kid hands-on learning experience, prefers hands-on learning, wants to learn how to animate. And he pull up YouTube videos, books that were in animation, that were written for animators, from animators, and I think it pulled up some like starting points as to what would be the best starting point for someone that has not tried animation. I was like, okay, can we? So I showed it to him. I say, this is what came up. What sounds good to you? What do you want to try? And then I add in the travel. So the travel is a big piece of what we do. So I'm always, I will take a trip over a lecture any minute.
Oh, yeah. Same here. No, I think it's great because all the information in the world is readily available nowadays, getting back to the whole
Yes.
technology thing here with YouTube and everything else that you can get. So I think if delegated properly by the mom and dad, or the parent, or whoever's taking care of the homeschooling, the unschooling education, that it's all there. So passing it along to your child would be a way for you to really learn how to do this. And then you can
Yes.
pass on that information to others.
Yeah, no, it's really, I mean, it's a great time to homeschool. Honestly, like you said, the technology is there. If there is more information that anybody could want. And something that I think about a lot, with the whole rise of AI is that I think our kids will be doing jobs that have not been created yet. So that's something that, I mean, we talk a lot about, in our house about AI and the jobs that have been replaced, like currently, and some of our experiences with people in Michigan whose job has been replaced by AI. And it's just incredible. It's incredible what you can find. And like I said, school has never been off the table for us. It's just
Right.
not what's needed in this moment.
A couple of things
And
that are a couple of things that are in my head is, do you know of any studies, Juliana, that show the growth of kids who are homeschooled or unschooled throughout their life and like how they made the next step for higher education? Because you're not going to get a higher education from mom and dad.
yes.
So eventually there's got to be some sort of a way. Either you've got a great job offer, or you need to go to a university or college where higher learning takes place. Do you know of any studies that show the progression?
Yeah, so there's a couple of them. So the Sudbury Education in Massachusetts it was a school. It's similar to an agile learning center. So it's self-directed education, democratic education, and they were the first to begin this kind of uh movement, almost you could say. I mean, this started back in the 70s. And John Holt was the person that coined the term unschooling, which is just basically, he was also a teacher. And this is what I always got caught up in. And like most of your advocates, like big people that are advocating for a life outside of the mainstream education, have come from the system itself. Like it's fascinating to read that. But Stottberry, I think they did a couple of studies with some other graduates because by now they have had like I don't know, a couple, maybe 20 classes or something that had graduated from there. And they regularly have like talks and experiences where they share their journey into higher education. And then the researcher, Peter Gray, also from the University of Boston, I believe, he's very much into the research, and I love reading his work. It's very, very powerful. So he has probably cited some studies and created their own, his own studies too for that. But they have followed. Peter Gray wrote Free to Learn, the book in 1994, I believe, as a result of some of the experiences with his son. And then he has been a researcher since then about advocating for, free play and just time outside and all of that. So he was a huge influence too at the beginning of my journey because I was afraid, honestly. Like I was afraid to go down this path because I didn't know anybody. Like you say, my family they were supportive, but they were like, we just are not sure, so we're just not gonna ask questions, but they're very supportive. So, yeah, so they're definitely they are out there. The research is out there. And then, yeah, there's a lot more people like speaking about it and like sharing their stories, the struggle, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because just like in school, you'll have a combination of all three.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell us the name of your podcast and tell us what you focus on there.
So the name of my podcast is The Unschooling Lifestyle. And what I concentrate on is on the lifestyle, because it's not just choosing. So if you think about our life when we go into the school system, it's like a puzzle and it's like all perfect, right? Mom's job, dad's job, the school. When you choose to go on another direction, whether it's traditional homeschooling with structured curriculum or unschooling with a more self-directed education, that piece that was the school system will now change shape. So all of a sudden, your mom and dad pieces will have to adjust to the new shape of your education system. And that's kind of what I do is I concentrate on that transition, not just for your children, but for everyone. Because it's different. Depending on your own experience with the school system, your experience will be different.
Okay. So the name of the podcast again is what?
The Unschooling Lifestyle.
And you're doing it pretty much for other adults who are considering doing this
Yeah.
at home themselves, right?
Yes, because honestly, your children know exactly what they need and they will not be afraid to ask you. I really concentrate on how the difficulties that we go through as we choose this journey, because once you leave the system, you're also probably going to lose some friends because they're attached to the system. So you're going to start doing things differently. Then there's ups and downs, lots of tears. So I concentrate on showing people that once you go into the dark forest, I swear to you, there's a waterfall, some good, happy trees on the other side of it. I swear.
If you were to take a look at whether or not your kids are well adjusted, what would you say?
They're definitely well adjusted.
And what about their mom?
Their mom has growth a lot thanks to them. And I could never ask for anything. Was it easy? Absolutely not. I had really hard times. I mean, there's no lying here on the difficulty that was for me. Like, I will never sugarcoat it because it's just not fair, because it was just raw. It really was. But will I change it? No, no. Like, I don't know. It's been wild. It's been wild.
So when you're doing a podcast, whether it's your own or guesting on another's like mine, what
Yes.
are the kids doing?
They are outside probably with my husband right now. Uh going on we got this like scooter thingy, so they're going on a walk right now probably. And if I'm by myself, they're at home, either they're on their iPad right now playing Roblox or downstairs doing something on the table, the art table.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
now what's important to me quite often is to know about the whole food structure of a family. Who does the cooking and what have you eaten today so far?
My husband is the cook of this family, and my oldest has had cucumbers. We have had pizza rolls and the cake that my mom baked for us yesterday, and we're about to have to make tacos for dinner.
Nice. Okay, tacos. Tell me what kind and what kind of tortillas you're using and what the ingredients you'll be putting into them because, you're Mexican descent, so I need to know this.
Yeah, but we do the simple ones though. I honestly, my mom, both my parents are great cooks. I do not have find a lot of joy in cooking because it's a process that takes me a long time to get into. I'm very I need a clean kitchen, I need like a recipe. I think I would be more of a baker if, because I need that structure. That works for me. But taco's very simple, just lettuce, tomato. We use corn and flour and some Tabasco sauce. Honestly, very basic.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I mean there is a basic. I think I watched the episode with a lady that used to work with Anthony Bourdain, which is one
Oh
of
yeah.
my favorite writers. I love his writing. And she was talking about the tacos al pastor that she was.
Right.
I was like, I could never.
You
But
wouldn't venture that far, try to make that.
no, honestly, not right now. Like my husband is a barbecue type of guy. So we barbecue steaks. He does it. Steaks like once or twice a week. Like we eat a lot of meat around here. Yes.
Okay, so it's not complex cooking, it's just good down home yum.
Yes, yes, definitely not complex because it just yeah, the kids take a lot of time, from us. So we try to maximize the use of our kitchen and the ingredients. But yeah, my husband's in charge of the cooking and then we all go grocery shopping at night actually. That's one of our favorite activities is go to the store at night. So we
Okay.
usually go about 7:30 to 8 and we just browse through the aisles, look at the fruits and the vegetables and all of that. And that's one of our favorite activities. And then we play a game of guessing the bill.
Oh, okay, what the final tally will be.
Yes. Yes. It's so fun though. That's one of my favorite things that we do together.
I
Yes.
would enjoy doing that with you someday down the
Hmm.
line.
Yes, please come on over because we enjoy and we try new foods, that look interesting, the packaging, all of that. But yeah, there's a lot of conversations that happen on those late grocery runs.
Even though you're not much of a cook, are you adventurous in trying other cuisines, like by going out and trying new restaurants or making different recipes at home?
So only if you tell me this restaurant has this dish and it's amazing because of this, I'd be like, okay, I want to try that. But I need a recommendation from someone, whether it's an article or something. I need something from someone in order to try. But yes, I'm an adventurous person. So I'll do a lot of things on the road. I'll visit places, I'll go hiking, I'll do a lot of stuff. But the eating situation, I need to have someone side by side. Yeah, by my
Gotcha.
side.
God, you see, so you're kind of like built into that whole tradition of what you did in your earlier years, and you still are there now.
Yeah, I mean, my sister claims that I'm stuck in the 90s, from my music taste, which is like back from in the 90s. And it has evolved, over the years, but it's not like super sophisticated. So I'm very comfortable in the routine and the consistency of some things, because being in the airline industry, my life is consistently inconsistent.
Right. No, I get that. But when it comes to the music, definitely the music of the 80s and 90s was way better than today.
I agree,
Yeah.
highly agree with that. There's so much more just rhythm. The lyrics are better. Yeah, I highly agree with that. So yeah,
Well, fantastic. Julieta Duvall, thank you so much for hanging with me here on 50 Tastes of Grey. I hope you had a nice time.
I did. Thank you so much for having me, Matthew. And I really appreciated your questions though, because I really love thinking about it like from what other people see and just kind of exploring, not always being on my side, but I really love the deeper questions. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.